Today we're going to be talking about writing linear equations when you're given a graph. So when you're given a graph, the easiest way to write that equation would be to identify your slope and your y-intercept. If you have a graph and you're writing an equation, the best method or the easiest one, the form that you're going to want to use is your slope-intercept form, which we've been talking about for a couple of weeks now. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And remember, m is your slope and b represents your y-intercept. So if you can easily see those on your graph, then writing an equation in slope-intercept form should be fairly easy for you guys. So let's review how to find your slope given a graph. So remember, that's when you're using that slope triangle. So you're going to start at one point on the graph, and remember, you read your graph from left to right. So if you'll start on the point that's on the left, so you can see a point right here, you want to rise till you're in line with another point, and then run to get on top of that point. So on this particular one, I had to rise 3 and run 1, which makes my slope 3. Because remember, your slope is change in y over change in x. So if I rise 3 and run 1, then that reduces to a slope of 3. For your y-intercept, you can see that's where I started my graph right here. So if I count from the origin, I'm going to go ahead and erase so you guys can see a little bit better. If I start from my origin and I simply count 1, 2, 3, you can see that you started on -3 for your y-intercept. Now I just replace the m and the b in slope-intercept form with those numbers. So I have y equals m, which in this case is 3, so 3x. And then b was -3. So y equals 3x minus 3 would be the equation for this line. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to start on my leftmost point, which happens to be my y-intercept right here. So if I look at that, I'm on +2 on the y-axis. I can see that because if I start from my origin and count up 2, I'm on the y-axis, which that means b, or your y-intercept, had to be +2. Okay, so now let's find our slope. So if I start on that point, I have to go down 1, 2, 3, so down 3 over 2 to get back on the point. So my change in y was -3 because I went down 3, and my change in x was equal to right 2. So that makes my slope -3 over 2. Then I'm going to use that information to write my equation. So y equals -3 over 2 x plus 2. So remember, m is the number in front of x. That's your slope. So -3 over 2. b is the number that's being added or subtracted. So y equals -3 over 2x plus 2 would be the equation for this line. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and do number 3 and 4, and then you can check your work with mine. Okay, so if you look at number 3, notice no longer do I have the m equals b equals, but you can write that for yourself. So step 1, if you notice up here, was to identify the slope. So I went up 2 and over 5, so my change in y over my change in x was 2/5, so that's what I put in front of x. And then my y-intercept, or b, is where it intersects the y-axis, which was at +2. So that's where my +2 came from. So y equals 2/5 x plus 2. For number 4, to find my rate of change, I started on this point and I had to go down 3, so that's why it's -3. And to the right 1. So -3 over 1 is my rate of change, or my slope. That's the number in front of x, which is -3. And then my y-intercept, this line intersects the y-axis at +1. So that's where I got the +1 from. Okay, I want you to go ahead and pause the video and do 5 and 6. If you look at number 5, to identify my rate of change or my slope, so that's your change in y over your change in x, I had to rise 3 and run 2 to the right. So that made my slope or my rate of change 3 over 2. So 3 over 2x, and then my y-intercept is the point where the line is intersecting the y-axis. If I look, that occurs at positive 3. So y equals 3 over 2x plus 3 would be my equation in slope-intercept form. For number 6, if I go down 2 and to the right 3, I'm back on my line. So my rate of change was negative 2/3. So I replaced m in my equation with negative 2/3. My y-intercept, or b, is at negative 2. So I have y equals negative 2/3 x minus 2. Okay, I want you to go ahead and do 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then you can check your work with mine. If you notice on number 7 and number 9, so I'm looking at number 7 and number 9, on both of these, my slope actually reduced to 1 for number 7 and negative 1 for number 9. So I want to talk about both of those. So on number 7, if I start on this point, I have to rise 4 to get in line with my other point and run 4. So my rate of change was 4 over 4, which reduces. 4 divided by 4 is actually 1, okay? And on number 9, I went down 2 and to the right 2, so negative 2 over 2 reduces to negative 1. So notice that when I wrote my equation, I didn't write 1x. I just put x, and then I used my y-intercept, the minus 3, because that's where it's intersecting y. And then over here, when my slope was negative 1, I had negative x, and then my y-intercept was positive 1, so plus 1. So when you have a variable that has a coefficient of 1, it's not necessary to write it. So when I see y equals x minus 3, I know that my slope was 1. And my y-intercept was negative 3. And down here, when I see negative x plus 1, I know my slope was negative 1, and my y-intercept was positive 1. For 8 and 9, I rise 2, run 1. My slope was 2. My y-intercept is 4, so y equals 2x plus 4. For number 10, I only went up 1, and I ran 2. So 1 over 2, or a half, was my slope. My y-intercept was negative 4, so y equals half x minus 4. I'd like for you to go ahead and do 11, 12, 13, and 14 on your own, and that's where we will pick up in class. So you're completing 11 through 14 for homework, and then we will discuss in class tomorrow. You guys have a great night.